All right, this is Jeremy Cogan with Blockchain.WTF. I like it, yes. Round of applause.
Thank you, thank you. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by our talk about the importance of blockchain education. Hope everyone's having a great conference. I know I am. I've done a couple conferences before, so I am no pro by any means. This is it. Can you hear it? Closer, mouth. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I got that now. No pro by any means. I have done a couple conferences, never a super conference before, so this is uncharted waters. Hopefully I don't hit any reefs. We'll see. Our discussion today is focused on how to more effectively teach these enigmatic, confusing technologies known as blockchains and cryptocurrencies. We're going to be spending the next 20 minutes or so together, so I figured I'd introduce myself, give you some background on myself, and then we'll dive right in. Hopefully you'll walk out of here with better understanding on how to convey blockchain concepts and ideas. Another major problem that really discourages people from diving into blockchain technology, complex tech ideas and jargon that really aren't necessary. I don't come from a tech background, as I mentioned earlier, studied public policy with some economics sprinkled in, but I do consider myself somewhat intelligent and capable, even when it comes to computers, but there's always been something about tech that's been intimidating, that has steered me away from really diving into this monolith that is technology. And by extension, the perception that blockchain has to be rocket science isn't true. When presented in the right way, these concepts can be easily grasped and lead to a solid foundation upon which to learn blockchains, cryptocurrency, and all related topics. So many resources in this space are needlessly complex. It's like they're trying to make themselves more complex to increase credibility, but that comes at the expense of accessibility. We're trying to do the exact opposite. We're never going to dumb down information, but we are going to offer it in an easy to digest and fun manner. The age of the technology and the room it's had to grow has led to an environment where innovation is constantly happening. The technology is so new and so is all this framework behind it. And this means that there's still a lot of room for innovation and improvement, and those two things are happening really fast. What's true one week isn't necessarily true the next. Hell, what's true one day isn't necessarily true the next in this space. The challenge of keeping people up to date is very real, which is why we try to update our content as soon as something changes. For example, about a month ago, we made a video about Rayblox, the Rayblock token, and the day that was released, Rayblox decided to rebrand to Nano, and a matter of hours after the video was released. We've definitely learned that you have to move on the fly, think on your feet, because not only is the demand for this information changing, the information itself is constantly evolving. I want to touch on something called the curse of knowledge. And it's an interesting concept that was introduced to me a while back, actually. Different topic, or in a different space. And it just states that once you learn something, it's hard to remember or relate to a time before you knew that fact. If you think about it, that makes it really hard to teach. People are coming in on the ground floor here, and you're an expert. You need to make sure you're going onto the ground floor to talk to them on their level. You can't still be a couple levels ahead of them because that's not going to hit. These are beginners, and they are just not going to retain that information. And on that note, we've asked ourselves, how can we more effectively teach blockchain? And I just touched on it, onboarding. Every single one of you in this room has a different level of experience when it comes to blockchains and cryptocurrencies. So it would be ridiculous to all teach you the same thing in the same order. If we just put out one set of general information, well, that would just be boring and redundant for those who are well versed in blockchain, and it'd be a very easy way to scare away the novices. So our goal is to know our audience. Our response to this issue, we've taken a 3 or 4 lane approach that's simply labeled ranging from beginner to expert. And our job is to provide information for all of these levels, so anybody seeking blockchain technology has a suitable starting point. Our goal is to get 3 or 4 separate packages up, so no matter what your blockchain level of experience, we've got you covered. However, we've realized simply providing ideas is not enough. You need to make ideas sticky. And you want to make memorable, not forgettable content. Interesting stat, on average, for every conversation you have, I think 12 to 24 hours later, you're only going to remember 25% of that information from that conversation. So, what makes up the messages that make this 25% effective? Telling you a fact is great. Will that message land? Maybe. What's really interesting is that you can have the same information delivered in two separate ways, with one message sticking and the other same message in a different delivery mechanism completely going in one ear and out the other. So the question is, what makes for memorable information? Well, a couple of authors, brothers Chip and Dan Heath, answered that question in this book, Made to Stick. So there's a few characteristics for sticky messages, messages that land. They're simple. What action do you want to compel? What's the one message that you want people to take away from what you're trying to teach? From my experiences, I found that analogies and metaphors work the best for helping people understand these abstract blockchain topics. You're basically likening something unknown to something known, and that makes for a really effective way to teach. For example, instead of calling something a public key, call it an address. Make these terms as simple as possible so people don't get lost along the way. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where people are following along. All of a sudden, I'll use a term that they don't get, and their eyes completely glaze over, and I've lost them for the conversation. The goal is not getting to that point, and when they do get to that point, bringing them back. Gaining attention is one thing. Keeping attention is a whole different animal. So what you want to do is deviate from the norm and break out of your expected routine. For example, I know an actor who did a lot of open auditions, and his goal was to stand out from the crowd, out of 100 people all going for the same part. So he would go to an open audition, and there would be a chair right here on stage, and for people to sit or do whatever. And his first action was to jump on the chair and then start reading his part while on the chair. And a couple of times, he obviously, if you do it enough, you're going to miss the chair. He fell flat on his behind. And an interesting note, every single audition where he missed the chair and fell on his behind, he either got a callback or the part. That's probably because what he did was very unexpected, and that made him stand out. So if you relate this as storytelling, basically telling a story with a twist is the most effective. Your brain's going along thinking it has where you're going along on the story figured out, and all of a sudden you make a left turn. And the thing is, you're going to remember that left turn because you're deviating from the norm. Sticky messages are also concrete. We all learn in different ways, and each message must be clear and relatable. Here's a perfect example. Back when I was growing up, I went to the movies a lot. And back then, when you went to the movies, everybody got popcorn. I'm talking about almost everybody. Then some news came about what is actually in that popcorn. And it wasn't the best news for popcorn sales, let's put it that way. The amount of saturated fat that's in the oil to make popcorn, or one medium bag, is about 20 grams. Now, that stat alone may make you think twice about eating popcorn. Sure. But it's a fact with no context. But if you add in some context in there to help shape your message, the listener has something to relate to. So something like this. The amount of saturated fat that's in this medium bag of popcorn is X amount of your daily allowance. And one medium popcorn happens to be 100% of your daily allowance of saturated fat. Now, you may think twice about eating popcorn again. However, you got to ask yourself, is there a better way to deliver this message? A lot of people are visual learners, and we really haven't provided anything on that level yet. So we have this. They used a comparison. They laid out breakfast, Big Mac, steak dinner, basically enough food to feed anybody well enough for a day. Point of laying out all that food to show that all those meals has the same amount of saturated fat in that small bag or medium bag of popcorn. So just to recap, we went from telling you a fact to telling you a fact while providing context that puts that fact in place to giving you a visual comparison. Message 1 might have landed, 2 more likely, but 3, let me tell you, I wrote this example mainly from memory, and I read this book about 8 years ago. So that's a pretty sticky message. Another sticky message is to invoke emotion. A perfect example of this is something that we've seen on TV, basically trying to combat world hunger. Donate this, fight world hunger, that's a great message. However, donate this and we'll send you a picture of the child you're helping. We'll send you an update about what they're doing, how they're doing, what their life is like. That simply raised donations through the roof. So the question becomes, can you evoke emotion with blockchain technology? Just kind of a weird question, but if you look beyond the currency applications, blockchain can really help the world. The technology is about so much more than cryptocurrencies and financial services. There are so many potential applications that could just make the world a better place, that could be good for society as a whole. I know somebody who's sending back money to his family in a different country, and when you're dealing with remittance, you're dealing with probably about 20% fees. They take 20% off the top. I introduced him to cryptocurrency, and he's saving probably about 15% at the very least. So this technology can bank the unbanked, deal with remittance, record keeping, sustainability. There's obviously these business and financial applications, but I'm firmly of the belief that blockchain can help change the world. And that in itself is a very motivating thought. So why do we think that there's hope for blockchain technology and education? We're not giving out fish, we're teaching people to fish. We want to create content that engages critical thinking, this allowing for more informed user base that can formulate opinions on their own and function in this cryptocurrency environment. These are the people that come back for more. We try to be as accessible as possible. We're always available on social media, and every video I make sure to mention any questions, throw those down below in the comments, and we make sure always to get back to people. Another thing that I've noticed, 80% of our users are under the age of 35. So kind of the experience that I had with the internet growing up in the 90s, a lot of people are going to have with blockchain now. And some of you might recognize the Helen Lovejoy meme, won't somebody please think of the children? It became a popular catchphrase on The Simpsons. And I find it very, very encouraging that I do see some younger people trying to dip their toe into cryptocurrency. And pretty much by the time they're adults, they'll be well versed and it'll pretty much be their way of life. I saw a question in the back.
A quick question. What is the definition of users there? Who are they?
Website visitors. And I think those are our Google Analytics for our website. Yeah. Our YouTube numbers are similar. So there are some additional hurdles that we've noticed just in the process. You're dealing with short attention spans. The quickest way to become irrelevant is to have lame content. You have to have fun with what you're doing. You also have to put it out there on social media, make it accessible. Overcome these misconceptions. Know we're a long way from the Silk Road, and institutional legitimacy is happening as we speak. Another goal that we have to help decipher the constant barrage of current events that's happening. There's a lot of false information out there and even conflicting information, a lot of scams out there, and it leads to an environment where you really can't trust anybody, and we want to become that trusted resource. Obviously, that's something that has to be earned. Another reason that we're doing this is security. Blockchain literacy is really the only way to truly provide security for your funds. And through this, we try to emphasize security. We don't want people getting into something that they're not prepared for. So we've helped people recover funds, people's wallet. We get messages that my wallet's wiped, panic ensues. So we've responded to this by trying to teach people how to back up their wallets. And a lot of times when these issues, 2 minutes? All right, I'll wrap it up. A lot of times when we have these issues, they're just comments on our YouTube channel. So we go and it gives us a way to directly speak to our users. And we've helped out a lot of people that had some minor problems that aren't any big deal, but for them it wasn't a minor problem. For them it was a major one. So I'm going to wrap it up here. First of all, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. I want you to check out Blockchain.WTF, our website. Again, our goal is to be your one-stop shop for all your blockchain resource needs. We're also based off the Chicagoland area. If you're ever around or want to collaborate, feel free to email us via the website, or I'll actually be outside with some business cards.